Hey, Originals listeners, get ready for a special episode. Even though nobody's going to get molested by a family member, there's not going to be any abortions, or nobody's going to get addicted to weed, there's some emotional content in this show, so we might even call it a very special episode, like they used to on your favorite terrible TV shows. The theme of today's show is very simple. Your host had the incredible bad luck of having 3 great interviews in the hopper that, owing to 3 separate deaths, all of a sudden sound different. Not only super untimely, but honestly a little weird, and some might even say tasteless. But this, of course, is the podcast where you heard that Marlon Brando may have copulated with his cats. So obviously, our taste-o-meter's been out of whack for years. This is The Originals, and I'm your host, Andrew Goldman. I spent decades interviewing celebrities for magazines, the vast majority of whom were just there to sell something and shared very little of themselves. I created The Originals to interview cultural figures who actually had something to say, wanted to express something real. Welcome to the 10th episode of our 3rd season, produced in proud partnership with Los Angeles Magazine. My first of 3 guests started his life as a Brooklyn Orthodox Jew, only to make the long journey to become a proudly oversexed gay legend in Hollywood. His name is Joel Thurm, and he's a casting director who worked on Broadway and in movies, and among other big gigs, headed talent operations for the networks NBC and CBS. You think David Hasselhoff was the only man who could have played Michael Knight in Knight Rider? Thank Joel Thurm. How about Danny DeVito as Louis De Palma in Taxi? Joel Thurm's handiwork. And who not only put that boy Travolta in that plastic bubble, but also in Grease? That's actually another casting director. His name? Nope! Psych! Yep, it was Joel Thurm. Joel has a very entertaining book coming out soon, chronicling his show business adventures. It's called Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season, Confessions of a Casting Director. And without giving too much away, I highly recommend this book, especially for anyone who has ever had a fantasy that involves Mike Brady, a buff Jewish casting guy, and a trailer. So why is this interview recorded back in April of 2021 bad timing? Well, I think it's going to be pretty obvious. Well, Joel, you cast Golden Girls. I came to your book with this sense that Betty White is America's sweetheart, loved by everyone. So was Betty White popular in the cast of Golden Girls?
No, the women hated her. Literally.
How can you hate Betty White? I can't even understand. Tell me what am I missing?
All right. One of the things is, literally, B. Arthur, who I cast in something else later on, just said, "Oh, she's a fucking cunt," using that word. But
B. Arthur called Betty White a C word?
Yeah, she called her the C word. I heard that with my own ears. And by the way, so did Rue McClanahan. Rue McClanahan said it to me in Joe Allen's, B. Arthur on the set of Beggars and Choosers. What happened was, and they were
so Rue McClanahan specifically said Betty White is a cunt?
Yes.
Okay.
And what she would do, for instance, was... And this I remember clearly. Estelle Getty she began to have increasing problems with memorizing lines. And she would write the lines on her hand. And if she went up, Betty White would make fun of her in front of the live audience. You know, that may seem like a minor transgression, but it really does get to you. So, if those 2 other women felt that way about her, I don't have no idea how Estelle Getty felt, but I know the other 2 did not like her at all.
Wow.
But, she's had the last laugh. She's alive. She was the oldest one of them, and she's still alive. So,
Joel, you and I, we're gonna cancel Betty White. We're gonna take her down.
No, you can't, because her work on Saturday Night Live is enough to keep her around forever. And again, it's like, I'm not paying money to see the real Betty White. I'm paying to see the actress Betty White.
Yeah.
So it's the same. You could be a horrible person, but you're wonderful in front of the camera.
So obviously, before Joel and I could even get to her, God canceled Betty White on New Year's Eve of 2021 at age 99. I don't really think that we can go so far as to say that Betty White was a horrible person, and I really don't think Joel meant that. From all the obits, we learned that White certainly seemed to like animals, even if she wasn't that kind to Estelle Getty, who indeed suffered from Lewy body dementia, the same disease that took Robin Williams. Betty White was obviously a comic genius, and we all know how pleasant male comedy geniuses like Milton Berle, Jackie Gleason, and Jerry Lewis were to be around. So let's cut the old girl some slack. You can't stay on top as long as Betty White did without a sharp edge or two. But Joel certainly seems to have kept his C-word receipts. The series he mentioned, by the way, Beggars and Choosers, was a comedy about the inner workings of a TV network that ran on Showtime from 1999 to 2001. Bea Arthur played herself on several episodes, and for his work, Joel was nominated for Best Casting for a TV Comedy Pilot by the Casting Society of America. Next up in our cavalcade of bad timing, legendary movie producer Art Linson, the force behind such films as Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Heat, and The Untouchables, and more recently, executive producer of the runaway TV hit Yellowstone. Linson's 2002 memoir, What Just Happened, is a seriously great show business tell-all, and I highly suggest that you go out and find it. It features one of my all-time favorite stories illustrating just how ridiculous working in show business can sometimes be. And how cool is this? Linson produced the 2008 film with the same name, in which his close friend and frequent collaborator Robert De Niro played him. The story you're about to hear involves the 1997 film The Edge. The movie's about a billionaire, played by Anthony Hopkins, and his trophy wife, Elle Macpherson, who travel to a remote Alaskan destination with a young Studley photographer who happens to be screwing the rich man's wife. So the billionaire and the billionaire's wife's boyfriend get stranded alone together in the woods, and well, of course, it's awkward, and then a bear tries to eat them. So with a David Mamet script and Anthony Hopkins hot off Silence of the Lambs, what could possibly go wrong? The actor playing the boyfriend, that's what. That actor, Alec Baldwin, was involved in a fatal shooting on the set of a film called Rust 6 months after Linson and I talked. That explains why sharing it now represents a case of capital B bad timing. One note on the dramatic personae, Bill Mechanic was the head of Fox, the studio behind the film, and John Burnham was then one of William Morris's top Hollywood agents, representing not only Baldwin, but Sean Penn and Woody Allen. What Just Happened was about the making of a movie, The Edge, a movie that you actually don't refer to as The Edge. What do you call it?
I don't even, I mean, that's a studio name where they said we hate, Mamet's first attempt at this, he called it The Bookworm, which I liked and he liked and the studio hated. So it was like an executive lottery of like 20 dumb executives all asked to come up with their 10 favorite names. And when you ask 20 people to come up with something, the Edge may be the only thing on everybody's card because it means nothing, it says nothing, and it's the perfect studio title. And we were at a loss as to what to do, so we went with the studio. But it's a very hard thing for me to say the word The Edge. I don't even know what it means. And the book...
You know what's interesting is The Edge... I don't think The Bookworm is a very good title. The Edge is a movie about a bear attack, which is the last movie
Fox.
I could... The last movie I can remember about a bear attack. You know what's a worse title than The Bookworm? The Revenant.
There you go. So maybe it doesn't matter. And I remember, look, here's the thing. The Edge is so secular. I mean, it's just so like the word "the" that you can't remember it. So I have trouble calling it The Edge. I must say, I think it's one of David's best screenplays. And I just think that Alec Baldwin in this thing is extremely good, even though we don't speak to each other.
Alec Baldwin at that point in his career had a reputation as being difficult. Is this something, are a lot of actors difficult?
Alec isn't really difficult to the person that has the power. He's difficult to people like his agent. He's difficult to people, the people he's working with, he's actually not difficult at all. He's giving, he's prepared, he's extremely talented. But he has temper tantrums. And
tell me about what the issue was, and this is something that actually becomes a big theme.
Well, it's really simple. We got a very talented guy, and Alec Baldwin, to want to do this because of a David Mamet screenplay, and this is before Anthony Hopkins, and he looked like a movie star. Not that there is such a thing, but I mean, he was in great shape, and we cast it. Months go by. We all get together in Canada on the set, and he shows up. Now, remember, I'm just here to half of it. Like I say, even in the book, I mean, you are the mayonnaise. I mean, I'm willing to make. I mean, I'm sort of in between the studio and acting as a liaison. Yeah. I see.
You very graphically called it the mayonnaise in a shit sandwich.
Yes.
Between the what? Between the meat and the money?
This is an example of this. You want the money, so you have to be nice. And you want them to like you and get a performance, so you have to be nice. But you're in the middle of this thing, and he's now gained 50 pounds, and he's got a Gabby Hayes beard. He looks older than Anthony Hopkins. So I call Bill Mechanic at Fox. I go, listen, we're up in Canmore, Canada. I mean, what do you want me to do on this? I mean, we're 6 weeks from shooting. We're up here for rehearsals, and he's come in. I had to send him a picture. It wasn't like the phone thing then, where you can do it and he can just see it. I actually had to do some photographs to show him, and he went, "Oh, we can't have this. He's starring in the movie. He wanted $5 million. I mean, this is crazy." And it's always about the money. It's like if I would have said, "Well, he'll do it for nothing now. He'll do it for scale." Suddenly, he just got thinner, and the beard goes in, and fuck it. So, we're doing a different kind of a movie. But he was a young Lothario stealing Anthony Hopkins' wife, who is, Elle Macpherson. So now we have two old guys chasing after Elle Macpherson. And so I go to Lee Tamahori, and he goes, I said, look.
This is the director.
Yeah, the director. And he's from New Zealand, so he's like a little new at this game. I said, look, I talked to the studio. They're very upset. They paid this guy a fortune to be a leading man. And look, part of it's our fault, too. Who knows what it would have been the way he wanted to do it. But I just knew I can't surprise the studio and they see dailies and all of a sudden...
Let me just stop you for a second. Has anybody ever just, like, in a meeting with Alec said, hey, Alec, what are you thinking about the beard? Has anybody, like...
I said something like, have you given some thought to the beard thing? I wanted to see... and try a starvation diet for the next 6 weeks so we get close to the guy that I met in L.A. when we talked about this. But I was real, I did say exactly what you said. I said, have you given some thought to what the look is? We were in the wardrobe tailor. And he goes, yeah, I like it. That was enough for me. I went, look, Bill, this is going to go this way. I go to the director. I say, Lee, do you think he's going to shave this beard or not? Because I think he's got to lose some weight and shave the beard to make the studio happy. He goes, yes, I don't think he's going to. But it's easy for Bill to tell him, to tell me to tell him.
Bill, the executive.
Yeah, Bill McKenna. It's easy for him and Chernin to tell me to tell him, but it's hard for them to do it. So I weaken. I don't tell him because I already mentioned it, and he went, yeah, I like it. I already could tell it was done quick, like a knife. This wasn't going to change. I already knew where he was coming from. So I go to the director, as you would do, and I went and I said, look, Lee, you got to tell him. The studio's crazy. He goes, I'm not telling him. I said, you got to tell him. You're the director. I said, he's got to lose weight and shave his fucking beard. That's sort of the deal. And he goes, I ain't telling him. So I have to call Bill Mechanic back. He goes, nobody here can tell him. And he goes, you fucking... He says, okay, you call his agent and tell him he's got to do this. So I could do that, So I call his agent, who's John Burnham at the time, and I say, John, look, I got some news. Alex here, he apparently likes his house. Everything's cool. I mean, it is a beautiful spot in Canada. And I said, So
you're on set. You're like days.
We're days from shooting. We're like a couple of weeks from shooting. But I'm on the set, and I say, look, we're going to shut down. I said, you got to tell him he's got to shave his beard. And there's this dead air on the phone for like about what seemed like an eternity. It was probably only 10 seconds. I mean, like no noise. And then he goes, I can't do that. I said, you're his agent. He says, if I do that, I will be fired. So it's like asking me to be fired. And he's a big client.
I mean, does this happen with every...
No, this never happens.
Why is it...
This never
Why does it happen? Does this speak to Alec's power in this position?
Well, he's the
or
star
does
of
it
the
speak to
movie.
his reputation?
He's the star of the movie,
Yes.
but now I'm seeing the difficult guy. And by the way, I find that.
But you haven't yet seen the difference. Nobody's actually had a showdown. All he said was, "I think the beard's great." Right? Has anybody? Right?
All he ever said to me is, "I like it, and I could tell nothing's changing." I didn't need like a whole speech. I didn't go, "Well, I don't like it, so I'd like it to go." I didn't do that because you could tell by the way he said, "I like it." That's what we're going to do. So we needed stuff from the studio. The studio then calls Burnham and said, "Yep, we're going to shut down and replace him if he doesn't do it. You got to call him." Now, Burnham already knows he's going to be fired on that phone call. That he just as the messenger of giving the message that he's going to be fired.
I'm trying to think in his situation, what choice does Burnham have? Can Burnham
has to
say,
do
"I'm
it.
not
It's his job. He's going to be the bearer of good news and bad news."
The executives were ready to bring in Bill Pullman, right? They were ready to say, "Let's just make this movie with Bill
They
Pullman."
threatened. I'm not sure they would have done it. And
Okay.
I'm not sure Anthony Hopkins would have gone along with that. He liked Alec and should. Alec was fabulous in the movie. Even though he dislikes him, he's fabulous. Burnham calls. He breaks his coffee table, apparently throws it through a glass window at this house, and then comes back to the phone and fires Burnham. Burnham said, "I got fired, but I told him if he doesn't shave his beard, he's off the movie." So I kind of go, I can't believe this. I said, so, and we're now shooting like 2 weeks away, and he still is not shaved. So Bill Mechanic has basically said, we're going to shut the movie down and recast it if this doesn't come off. We don't know till the day of shooting. He drives up in his one of those black SUVs, blacked out. We're all waiting to see if he's going to shave or not. But he goes into his trailer, and we're all going, "Oh my God, it's the first day he didn't shave the beard." And he comes out of his trailer with his wardrobe on, and he's shaved. We all get relief. We go, he won't make eye contact with me or the director. Like, I'm not sure he ever did with the director of the whole movie. It was brutal.
Can, as a lead actor in a movie, not make eye contact with a director?
Yeah, he sits there with Anthony Hopkins, and he kind of looks at Anthony and listens to direction. And, he's not rude or anything. He's just not, he's a tough guy, I don't think he's ever forgiven me to this day. I mean, I remember calling De Niro about it. I said, "God, Bob, I can't believe this is happening." He says, he won't do this." He said, "What is it?" He goes, "Oh, his chin's too fat. He just doesn't want to show it."
Oh, De Niro?
It was like, "Oh, this isn't a problem. He just knows if he shaves, his face is going to look fat." It's kind of, to him it was like, yeah, this makes complete sense.
Okay. Not only do you write this in the book, and not only is it excerpted in Vanity Fair, and then it gets turned into a movie in which Bruce Willis plays Alec Baldwin, who won't shave the beard. But I want to know, like, through channels, what did Alec Baldwin make of all of this, and how are you still alive? Because he seems like he would have gotten very, very angry at this portrayal.
I think he did get angry. He said, like, I'm some lame producer in Hollywood that has his tongue up Bob De Niro's ass, something like that. And I was like, oh.
This is what he said publicly?
Yeah, he said it in print. That's all I know about it. He didn't say it to me. But basically, he doesn't confront that way. It's a little more bark than bite. I mean, unless you're paparazzi or something. But, I mean, Sean Penn is somebody that... Well, I've never had a situation like that with him, but he's a fighter. In other words,
like, would he have you ever? You've never had a situation. You've never had.
No, we're close friends. We've been close friends ever since Fast Times. So, I mean, he got married at my house the first time. So it's that kind of friend. So he's never taken it out on me. I think Alec at the wrong time would have done something regrettable. Yeah, I think it's possible, but I think he's a little more bark than bite. In other words, breaking up a coffee table, cutting it in half, and throwing it out a window is about it.
I have to admit, when I first heard the Baldwin news, I thought, wow, Baldwin's really lost at this time. He must have been super pissed at that cinematographer. But obviously, that couldn't have been further from the truth, and it's a horrible tragedy for all involved, primarily Halyna Hutchins and the husband and 9-year-old son she left behind. One Alec Baldwin note, I tried to profile him for New York Magazine many years ago. This was probably around 2007. He didn't want to participate, I figured, because he'd just been in the news for leaving a voicemail for his 11-year-old daughter, calling her a rude, thoughtless pig. and assumed, rightly, that his anger would be dissected and discussed in the piece. So I endeavored to do what's called a write-around, calling anyone he'd ever worked with, trying to either write a piece without his participation or, even better, sweating him out and getting him to participate, even giving me background information for the story. Well, if Alec Baldwin is a very good actor, he is a genius shutter down of write-arounds. Everyone I called had been told not to talk. I got the impression that Alec Baldwin was spending as much time on the phone putting the kibosh on my story as I was reporting it. Anyway, shortly before I gave up, I got a phone call from a blocked number. It was Baldwin on the phone. He wanted me to know that it wasn't personal. He said he just hated that, quote, steaming pile of shit magazine you work for. So imagine my surprise when a few years later I saw Baldwin posing for the cover of that very same steaming pile of shit magazine, declaring that he was going to leave New York and retire from public life. Well, Alec Baldwin didn't leave New York, and since then he's hosted Match Game and been the subject of a Comedy Central roast. And to bring this story full circle, one of the roasters was, by the way, Robert De Niro. Postscript. A few years after that New York Magazine cover, we finally met face-to-face at a party. And afterwards, actually had a nice meeting to talk about working together on a project where he was going to play the mayor of New York. That show never happened, but he couldn't have been nicer, more engaged. So I think there are at least two Alec Baldwins, and I got a small taste of both of them. Our final tale of bad timing is a conversation that I had back in 2019 with Fred Stoller. I want to start by saying I love Fred. I just adore this guy. He's a comedian and character actor and a writer of memoirs, notably Maybe We'll Have You Back, The Life of a Perennial TV Guest Star, which chronicles Fred's life of guesting on sitcoms like Everybody Loves Raymond, Seinfeld, and Murphy Brown, and trying, but never quite getting his own. Though for many years, he did play Rusty the Neurotic Monkey Wrench on the animated Disney Channel show Handy Manny. I love Fred first because he's hilarious. Here's Fred playing Cousin Gerard on Everybody Loves Raymond.
Why do you gotta be so negative all the time?
Because I'm not very happy.
Well, whose fault is that, Gerard?
Right now?
You even talk strange. You're all nasally and whinily and like the word you just said, right?
Now?
Okay, what does a cat say?
You mean a talking cat?
No. Regular cat, a regular cat. What does a regular cat say?
Meow.
Meow, 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 meow. You see that? See how annoying that can be?
Yeah, but what do you want?
Try it like this. Right now.
Right now.
Try it again. Right now.
Right now.
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 Now. Now. You say it just like I do.
No, I don't. Just try it again. Try it again. Now.
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 Now. It's the
Now.
same.
It isn't.
Yeah.
Now.
Now. Now.
This isn't about me, Gerard.
Well, knock it off. You're really annoying.
A line Fred loves to use is, what's the difference between Ray's cousin and brother? $75 million, referring to what Brad Garrett made from being a series regular. One very Fred note, back when he started as a stand-up comic, he won an episode of Star Search. The guy who beat him the next week? Brad Garrett. I also love Fred because I see a lot of myself in him. He's neurotic, he's occasionally petty, he's often tortured by the success of contemporaries he knew earlier in his career. Though Fred's frenemies and nemesis succeeded on a much larger stage than mine. And I love Fred because he graciously appeared in my low-budget 2014 film, The Desk. He was one of 3 notable Hollywood characters to do so. The other 2, Richard Simmons and Ron Jeremy, didn't fare so well afterwards. But I don't think the fact that no one saw my film really figured significantly in Richard's subsequent disappearance or Ron's prosecution for serial raping. So, before we get to the bad timing part, I just want you to spend a few minutes getting to know Fred. The first thing you read is the Ray Romano foreword in your book. And Ray says, and I think it's somewhat, it's a little sad. He says, how he hasn't gotten his own show is beyond me. So, I think I want to open up and say, you are a guy who's had all these fantastic credits. You are a tremendous character actor. Why haven't you gotten your own show?
So, yeah, I've asked that question to myself. I think I'm a weird guy. I mean, one of my examples in the book is I'd have an audition, and they go, not so pathetic when I'm being myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I exude something, a guy that doesn't fit in. So that's not always ripe for let's create a world around this guy. I may be from another era. I think I got excited about being a character actor when I'd watch shows like the Bob Newhart Show with Therapy, his group, or Barney Miller with weirdos coming in. You know what I mean? I think growing up, I was pathologically shy and depressed. I knew the real world wasn't for me. I knew I wouldn't be a dentist or an architect or someone who could fix things. What am I going to do? So I would relate to the weirdos. I never fantasized being, Indiana Jones. It was just, I'd see someone like, one of them was a movie, The Last Picture Show, where this guy, Billy, was a stutterer. Or no, I think he was mentally challenged and a deaf mute.
Yeah, and he wore the hat.
Yes, but he would just sweep the street, and then he got hit by a car. So I walked around my house with my baseball hat on backwards like him, sweeping, and then I'd lie on the floor like it was hit by a car. So I never could fantasize I was a war hero or, you know what I mean, or a cool guy. I can only fantasize like being the weird guys like Ratso Rizzo. We would drive and I'd sit in the back of my father's car and press my head against the thing like I was dead. Yeah, I fantasized being weird dead people.
And your parents.
So
you told your mother you were going to be a comedian.
Well, I did. I quit college, which freaked her out because she was reliving the nightmare of when I was growing up. She said she relived a nightmare of growing up through me. That night, school was a nightmare, and she was reliving it through me. Freaked out that I would get left back and never catch up like she never did. That's all the pathology in that little statement. So she said, "What am I going to tell people?" She goes, I'm not going to tell them you're a comedian. I'm going to tell them you're retarded. That made more sense. She literally said that.
Said, I am not going to tell people.
You're a comedian. I'm going to tell them you're retarded. Meaning there's something wrong with Freddie, and she couldn't say Freddie's a comedian. And I understand.
Did she suspect that there was something developmentally wrong with it?
Well, basically... See, this is how an acting coach would manipulation. Like I would open up, they go, and this Fred, there's something wrong with you. You're like your mother says you never did anything, and you have a developmental issues, and no woman will want you, and use that in the scene. But then bad example.
It's a good example actually.
Yeah,
I mean, what you've just described is that it sounds
manipulation
like acting coaches are
or like
sort
battered. They're batterers to spouses where they'll tear you down like you could never be in the real world. Like when I got my first sitcom, my coach said, you better get coached before every table read, every rehearsal, everything, because if you don't, you'll get fired. So they keep you dependent on them, fear that I'll lose everything. I'm here because of you. It's because of you I got this job, which it wasn't, but they indoctrinate you with that I can't do anything. So for my first sitcom where I was a deli guy, I had to high five these black guys, and I you better get here and I'll squeeze you in, you'll get written out. So I'm paying and we're high fiving. And do it again, your arm goes straighter.
Wait, okay. Did she not think that you were capable
of high-fiving?
Of high-fiving an African-American person. Did she want you?
That's on my resume now. I can high-five African-Americans if you need it. I've been coached. I'm real good at it. Again, that's part of the manipulation. You can't do anything, but it was stuck with me, what it meant, like in the context of me.
I wondered if you wouldn't mind. I found these paragraphs really interesting. Could you read that from your book, possibly?
Yes. Okay. In Hollywood, when you see someone alone in the car next to you moving their lips, it's a pretty good bet they are complaining about someone else's success. That's because if you're in show business, just driving through Hollywood can be a minefield of reminders of how well others are doing. It's as if giant faces of the celebrities on billboards are whispering to me, hey, you in the 2001 Honda Accord with the crappy AC, you're a loser. Are you in a fun, cool project like I am? No. What are you even doing these days? Sometimes I don't even pull all the way to the red light just to avoid the smug face of someone I started with that's plastered on the side of the bus next to me.
One relevant note. Back when Fred was an aspiring 20-year-old comic in New York City, he used to date Amy Stiller, older sister to Ben Stiller, who was then just 14. So, Fred would be around a lot at the Stillers' big apartment on Manhattan's Upper West Side or at their vacation house in Nantucket, and Fred would sometimes even take little Ben out to comedy clubs with him. But Ben apparently didn't see huge commercial potential for Fred. So he actually nicknamed him the Provider, as in Fred would call the house and then 14-year-old Ben would say, "Hey, Amy, the Provider's on the phone for you." So years later, would Ben Stiller ever give Fred even one line in any of his movies, despite Fred personally asking and even auditioning for Dodgeball? No, Ben Stiller would not. Now that you've met Fred, let's get to the bad timing part. Fred's fraught relationship with Norm Macdonald. So, before I interviewed Fred in 2019, I'd come across a TMZ clip of the two of them from a few years back getting buttonholed by a reporter at LAX. So it turns out they'd known each other for 30 years from back in 1989 when Norm first moved to LA from Canada, and became closer a decade later when Fred guested on Norm's short-lived ABC sitcom, The Norm Show. And, as you'll hear, they had a very weird relationship that involved theft, possible bullying, and a rather bizarre appearance by the world's most notorious house cats. But first, I want to play a 2013 clip from Norm Macdonald Live, which started on YouTube but eventually morphed into Macdonald's Netflix talk show. The show was then brand new, Fred was only his third guest, and he came on to promote his memoir. I think you'll probably get a sense of their dynamic from this.
I'm going to read the blurbs.
Okay.
This is from Jeff Garland, actor/comedian. Is he a comedian?
Yeah, he does stand up.
He would know. You manage the comedy
That's
store.
right. Yeah, he's there a lot.
You go to him. He tells you.
Freddie Stoller, he says, is smart and handsome.
He's saying that in like, hey, you're handsome. He's not really thinking I'm handsome.
He's basically calling you ugly.
Yes, he's more like, hey, handsome man. He does this thing where you say,
as a matter of fact, the handsomeness gets in the way of the smart and funny. He keeps calling you ugly. While reading this book, I couldn't help but think of Freddie's good looks. This is drenched in irony. He's calling you ugly 3 times. So that's not much.
No, but...
Jay Moore, Fred is as good at writing jokes as anyone in the business in any era.
I think it was the 40s before they did topical jokes, when people just slipped.
He's also quite an underrated storyteller. I didn't know that. I thought you were always known as a great storyteller.
Well, maybe because you...
Are you guys like buddies? Because I saw you on TMZ together. What were you doing? It looked like you guys were coming from some gay weekend together.
A gay weekend?
Wait, you were coming up an escalator and TMZ catches you, and I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing together?
You know, I stopped doing stand-up for like 17 years. Then when my book came out, I was tracked down by something called the Jewish Book Festival, Jewish Book Circuit. They have a Jewish book circuit where they fly you to different cities, and I was supposed to do my stand-up act, which I hadn't done in years. I stopped doing it. So I had to remember my act. So I was performing. So then Norm said, you want to open for me when I heard I was doing stand-up. So close to a year, I opened for him once a month.
Oh, really?
And
what was it like opening for Norm?
Well, being diplomatic.
Because when you first worked with him, you said that he was something of a... He seemed to be a bully.
That's his MO. He likes to bust chops. He likes to kind of a bully, I'd say. He's very, very, well, this is the thing. Then we used to play tennis, and he would taunt me and then
on the court?
Oh, yeah. And then he knew I couldn't stand Kato Kalin.
You can't stand Kato Kalin?
No.
What did Kato Kalin ever do?
If you hung out with him, you would know it's just, I don't want to say bad things about the guy. He's doing the best he can.
Tell me. Come on.
I'm not saying he's evil, but just fake energy. Hello, and so annoying, charming women and dancing on tables and just fake energy. And Norm knew I couldn't.
But isn't that what you expect if you hang out with Kato Kalin?
But I don't want to.
What were you doing hanging out with Kato Kalin?
I think Norm knew I couldn't stand him, and he'd say, let's meet for dinner. And then Kato would show up dancing around the thing, dipping waitresses, let's do the dip.
He would invite you to dinner, and then he would invite Kato Kalin as well?
Knowing I couldn't stand him and crack up. They would taunt me together. They would gang up on me.
Okay.
And one time we were playing tennis and I had a flat tire, and they were all laughing at me that I had a flat, and they were driving by, and just
Norm Macdonald and Cato Kalin were in a car taunting you.
that I had a flat tire. It's juvenile, and
Was Norm Macdonald hanging out with Cato Kalin, ironically?
well, he always claims I was Cato's friend. I introduced them. Norm isn't friends with him anymore, but this is what I'm getting to. I thought Norm had changed and respected me when I would open for him. And he did it first, but then
What happened?
Norm loves confrontation. I value the experience of opening him for close to a year, but stand-up's not my blood. I don't need to do it. And I don't want to say bad things about Norm. This was the main thing.
Okay.
At my age, whatever I do has to be fun. And Norm doesn't know how to do Uber, doesn't know how to, do a kiosk and get plane tickets. So I had to be his assistant, and I'd be yelled at, and I kept saying, Norm, this has to be fun. I don't need to do it. So it stopped.
Did he tell you beforehand that you were going to have these kind of assistant role?
Let me just say something for the viewers, okay? Could I just say this statement?
You can't view a podcast,
of
Fred.
listeners. I want to say my fear is they're going to go, this whiny guy complaining. I'm actually grateful that I've come to terms that I never had a day job. I could do anything I want except buy a very nice house and put a kid through college. This book I wrote many years ago, and I'm not as embittered, except that I should have been on Raymond more. No, I'm not embittered that why did Brett Garrett make hundreds of $1 million?
Naturally, I thought about Fred back in September when I found out that Norm Macdonald died. I'd never met Norm, but I found myself unusually affected by this death for some reason. And I imagined that Fred would feel this far more acutely. And I also wondered if he had any regrets about the feelings that he'd shared with me. So we spoke a few weeks ago, just a couple days after the death of Bob Saget, another friend in common he had with Norm. First, I let Fred listen to what you just heard.
My God, this is gonna... I'm not gonna be a jerk and say, don't play that, but I really regret that. People are going to play context, clips of that out of context, and it's going to seem like after Norm died that I'm some asshole bashing him.
No.
First of all, as I was saying in that clip, I wasn't really bashing him. I said it was fraught, but we were friends since 1989, and we hung out a lot. And some of those things were with Cato and him being annoying and taunting me. But in a sick way, obviously, I got something out of it. I needed it. It was complex. I wrote about in my book that when I felt so invisible in school that there was this guy who would get taunted every day and bullied. One day he was absent and they chased me. I was the sub. So I kind of liked it. And so maybe...
Wait, you liked being taunted? You liked that experience?
Well, not taunted where I would be beat up but yes, I did because I felt so invisible, but I liked it a little bit with me because I felt it was a prerequisite for being a comedian or an actor, somebody were bullied.
So do you think, because look, when we spoke about it, I mean, did your feelings about Norm change the moment he died?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying one thing I realized is this cliche, things aren't black and white. It's not like, I don't want it to seem like I resented him. I have, in that interview before he died, great affection and laughed my ass off with his genius. So yes, when he died, I didn't realize... how much maybe he was like a parent figure, even though I'm older. Like, I really miss him. Even though we weren't always in contact, something would happen, like some insufferable comedian would get some accolade. And I just knew Norm would, when it happens now, even though he's gone, I still feel we're connected, like Norm shaking his head. And so I still feel so connected, and I'm very sad. And the thing, after we stopped touring, we kind of lost contact.
And you toured,
but
let me stop you. So you toured It was 2015. Is that when you toured with him?
Yes, right before the election. And one thing I was, again, this is, are you allowed to curse on this?
Yes.
Fucking history. But I was with Norm backstage at the Tonight Show when Trump was there with the infamous Jimmy Fallon tussling his hair. And
no way.
Yes.
Did you see Jimmy Fallon? Did either of you anticipate that this would be a problem?
Well, actually, Norm went, yeah, it made him seem likable. And I shook my head. Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah, I kind of was like, man, I didn't realize it would be so seminal and everything. So, but yes, answering your question, just because there were a few like weird, fraught negativity, uncomfortableness doesn't mean I don't value the shit out of it and no, you know what I mean, and have great times. I'm very sad. I was blown away.
Did you know he was sick? I mean, presumably he must have been ill when you were touring. Was there any indication?
That is so weird because I guess it was leukemia, and you think of.
Oh, it was?
That's what I hear, and you think of cancer that they're on chemo and that he never seemed weak. He did sometimes. Well, Bob Saget, the night before he died, did a 2-hour set. Norm would do an hour and a half. So, yeah, it was a shock. And it was one of those things where even though there was, those little weird taunting things, but that was him. That was his persona that.
You were about to say bully and you stopped yourself.
Because,
look, I was
maybe it wasn't bullying, but with Norm, I don't know if I'd call it bullying because Norm was brilliant and knew how to get under your skin, but it still would almost make me laugh and I'd still smile because he was a genius. And so it was in a sick way so fun and he was so charming.
Well, did he do it with affection? Because I was going back and reading your memoir. But you were on the second episode of the show, and Laurie Metcalf was also on the show. What did he ask Laurie when you were around? You were somebody who was...
I may have amplified that, not exaggerated, but he said, all your years on Roseanne, have any of the guests ever really made it that were on it? And she said, no. And maybe I didn't exaggerate that happened, but I maybe exaggerated he was doing it to zing me, that I was mostly a guest guy. So maybe there wasn't an intent. You
don't think it was pointed? Was it just the three of you talking?
Maybe it was, because it is almost in a way an interesting question. So I wouldn't pinpoint that as his most biting thing he did. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, yes, I feel distraught. He's gone, but it wasn't like that asshole, I'll never talk to him again, even before he died. I always thought at some point we'd be hanging out best buddies for a year or two or months, and then he does that with people. And
do you think he read the book? Because it's a very interesting chapter. The chapter title is Norm Stole My Jacket. Can you tell the story? I mean, basically, you feel like you had done one guest spot on his show, and you feel like
3.
You blew it.
Yes.
Why?
Well, we used to play tennis a lot, and one time his denim jacket, or in my car, he took it. Not stealing, of course. It's hyperbole. It's a lot of not exaggerations, but amplifying. I didn't think he took it out of my closet, but he had it by accident. He thought it was his or his son's. And I said, Norm, could I have my jacket? Yeah, you and your stupid jacket.
Wait, so you left a denim jacket in his car, or he left it in your car?
He doesn't drive. It was in my car, and I think he took it thinking it was his son's. We sometimes play tennis with his son. So
you honestly, in retrospect, think that, because in the book it sounds like he kind of took it.
Wow. I think he took it accidentally, but then would bust my balls not giving it back.
Yeah, you asked him for naturally you would be like, can I have my jacket back? And he never actually got it back to you, right?
And then I told some people, and this is before the internet was what it is, like maybe 98, 99, but someone posted on what it was back then that Norm stole my jacket, and it got back to his producer, and it was thought I was bad-mouthing him, so it caused a little problem.
I will say, it seems fairly obvious that he stole your jacket. And it's fine for you to forgive him, but
I'm not mad at him.
Own it that he stole your fucking denim jacket, Fred.
But he was fine with it that he had me on his show and he made jokes about it.
But then you asked him too many times about the denim jacket, and then they didn't have you back on his guesting on his show, right?
I don't know if it was that, but I speculated. But why then? I can't figure this out about me. Maybe you can. Why did that not bother me that much that I always would hang out with him, and when he'd come calling and tour with him?
Because I think you said it. I think that there's something in you. I think that both of you liked the power dynamic a little bit. I think that he liked, in shitting on you, I think he liked feeling sort of, I think, look.
No, but it wasn't all shitting, as I said.
But one thing that I've thought, like, you didn't do stand-up for years. You never liked stand-up particularly. Why, when Norm Macdonald decides to tour, does he call you up? I mean, it seems like there's all these people who want to work, and you were not working as a stand-up. Do you think that there was something about the power dynamic that he liked? Do you think that he liked having somebody who he felt he felt like he could lord stuff over?
No. First of all, I think that he liked touring with people he liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would tell people that her friends that he liked to put an act together, because part of touring was hanging out with Norm. So we did like hanging out. I didn't see it as that. I saw it as no way I'm an equal, but compared to maybe other openers, I thought he liked working with me because I wasn't desperate to come up with ideas for him to propel me. You know what I mean? I looked at it like work it slowed down. I saw it as like, I don't play golf, but like a hobby, going on the road. To me, it was about having a buddy to have meals with. He picked up all the meals. Also, I think he liked that, I'm older, and as
how old are you now?
One thing, now I'm 63,
okay.
But back then like 58, 59 or something. But I liked the only thing I liked about returning to stand-up is you could do a set and there was no illusion I was going to sleep with a waitress or someone in the crowd. You could just go home, and it took away that desperation, and it really made it more relaxing to not have hope. So we had a lot in common. We'd like to just get a bite to eat, channel surf. No, we had a lot of laughs. So that's why I want to clarify. There were some moments when it was a little bit of that, but it wasn't. Again, I'm not an idiot where once a month, for 11 months, I'd be with a monster or someone. Little things would come out. Yeah. And again, do you get that?
I do. Nobody ever has this opportunity, but Fred, I'm giving you the opportunity that we're going to penetrate the celestial divide.
I'm kind of hoping.
What would you say to him? What would you say, or what would you text him? What would you say if you had the opportunity to say something to him now?
Something, I think it wouldn't change in the fact it was apparent he had a love for me and I had for him. And I think we both knew, we cared about each other. Like, I reached out to his close people and said, Bob Saget loved Norm. So
you spent time with them together, didn't you?
Because when Bob Saget died, who I was not as close, but Saget was as great as they say, and did me so many favors. Yeah. And one time I was hanging out on the road with Saget and Norm, and this makes me laugh and maybe inside. Saget directed Dirty Work. He said, we should pitch Dirty Work too, and we could sell it in the room. And Norm goes, where else do they fucking buy it? Like, he didn't know the expression buy it in the room means right there. He goes, where else do they buy it? They buy it in a room. So
it's a great joke though. Where else would they buy it?
Yes,
no, but it's
no.
Such a quintessential Norm joke. Where the fuck else are they going to buy it if not in the room?
So what I'm saying is, I was honored to be part of such genius. And when you say, what would I say if I could see him now? I feel like I'm still seeing him. There's still a connection.
I mean, you know, I know that, you know, I've looked up the venues. I mean, you guys were doing big rooms, but you were not doing, you know, Radio City Music Hall. I feel like his death precipitated this kind of love. I know that I felt personally a great sense of loss when he died, but I do feel like there was this outpouring of him as a genius in one particular form, which was as talk show guest. But, you know, it just seemed like there were so many people that came out and talked about him. Do you think that he would have been surprised by that?
You know, like I said, it's complex. Like Howard Stern is an example where sometimes he'd go, I'm a loser, I'm a this, and he'd go, I'm the best. So like we all do. So Norm had times where that, but then times where he was really well aware of how, he loved that Letterman had said, there's no one funnier than Norm. And Norm didn't dispute it. I'm not saying he was arrogant about it. So he was aware of what they loved about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, you know, even in one of the stories that you tell about him being somewhat sort of prickly, I think you told him that you liked his SNL impression of Tarantino, right?
Yes.
And his reaction was,
you fucker, why'd you bring that up? That was the last time I was on it.
That was the last time I was on TV?
Yeah, last time he was on SNL. But like when I remember one time saying to him, Norm, congratulations, your book's a New York Times bestseller. He goes, are you mocking me? He knew I wasn't. So I don't understand how he kind of couldn't take a compliment, or he did what I think he was self-conscious of seeming like he was trumpeting himself, or you know what I mean. So he really in his way was very modest and didn't want to seem like he was bragging. And Norm was a friend. So he was a friend. And for example, when he died, so many people reached out to me, people I don't know, people on the street walking down Larchmont Boulevard. And I was confused at first because I was thinking this wasn't like, we weren't David Spade and Chris Farley, but how did people know there was a connection? Maybe I was on a show, maybe I did his podcast where some people reached out and would say, he seemed like he was being a jerk to you. Others said he seemed like he really cared about you. And it was both. And I'm getting goosebumps because I realized when he died, a fraught relationship is much harder and sadder to process than, a buddy-buddy.
That's our show. If you like it, please rate, review, subscribe, and tell 3 of your friends to do the same. And please ask them to do it quickly so they don't inadvertently die first. We love all downloads, even those that go directly to the phones of the deceased. This episode is produced by myself, Andrew Goldman, as well as Rob Heath, who, after I gave him a ride home from a pickleball outing a couple of years back, had the nerve to make off with my favorite culottes, saying he mistook them for his own. Special thanks to cousin Ethan Goldman, as well as my friend Drew Reed Kerr, who just completed a fantastic multimedia endeavor called the Queen's Chef Project, which I don't have time to explain, but suffice it to say, it is foodie porn and totally worth checking out at queenschefproject.com. Thanks also to the whole team at Los Angeles Magazine, notably Silver Fox editor Mayor Rashan. The Originals is, as always, a highly replaceable production.